Well, network call of the school year. Welcome everybody. It's our 9th meeting of the year. Super excited to have been a part of this all year, hoping to make it even more awesome and better next year. But tonight we will be discussing a teacher-friendly guide to climate change. When I got these, because we're actually giving them out for attendees to the Summer Institute this year, I was like, whoa, it's big. I wasn't expecting it to be big, but it's awesome. Really have enjoyed reading it. After we talk about that for a while, I kind of just have some final questions just about how the year went, some thoughts about next year. Yeah. So I'll just open it up to just some general discussion at this point. What did y'all think?
I landed my hand on a PDF version, which was probably much smaller than that.
A little bit.
When it was freely available. And so I was like, okay, this is not the one that Jenna is mentioning.
Really? Is the PDF? Do you think the PDF one is?
No, it's like a precursor to this because it's by Doug. Is his name Doug?
Mm-hmm. Don.
Don. Yes. So I know I recognized his name, but that's not the fact that you're showing.
Oh, so you just have like one chapter, or
maybe that's what it is because it just had the overview and a couple of. It was in one of the emails, climate literacy emails. There was a link, and I said maybe this is the same thing because this is the same person.
Mm-hmm.
So he I think before Wendy's talk on Climate Literacy Network, he had a talk, and he talked about this book.
Yeah. He did. He did the first chapter, and then he did three others within the book.
Yes. So I have the first chapter and a thing like here's what's coming up next.
Mm-hmm.
He did the obstacles to addressing climate change, and that's actually where I started.
Oh, nice. I think that's great. I mean,
yeah, I started essentially with one a while back.
Mm-hmm.
And went, okay, this is, I got this. I understand this material. And then going through the table of contents, going, okay, this is all material, I covered in my climate class with my high schoolers. So I thought, well, obstacles then, that'd be a good way to start, for my future classes in case I do run into anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because with my smaller class, they were very open to, what does the data say? What are you presenting to us? And at the end of the class, I had asked, have your views changed? Where did you start from? And I should have asked right away. So that'll be something I do next year. Where do you stand on this? But like I said, they were very open to it. So I thought this would be a good place to start.
No, I think that's a great idea. I haven't gotten that far because, of course, I get through about half of our Teach Climate books and then read the rest of them after our meetings. But that looks like an awesome chapter. And I will definitely get through the rest of this. Wendy, initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts are I was really counting on all of you to come through for me because it's something I really need to get a hold of and become familiar with, and I haven't. And
no worries. So, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, so it's on my I need to do this list.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, I need to, I need to get my hands on a copy.
I need to. Here's what I will do. I will come through over the summer. It's on my to-do list, and I will send you blitz over email.
And I need to do it too. But now I need to be careful that I make sure I get the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess I've got the PDF. This is not my work computer. I've got the PDF as well, and I went to print it one day, and it was 240 pages.
Yeah. I did that too, and put it in a binder when I went to St. Louis a couple weeks ago for a workshop, and it's like, okay, chapter 1 today. But as big as it was a very easy read, I thought.
Yeah, it was digestible.
Yep. It was just very relatable in the words that the authors used, and every once in a while I found myself laughing at that. Like, yeah, I get this. I can relate to this. And telling my husband, like, listen to how they worded this. He's like, what kind of book are you reading?
Every day I would go into work and I'd be like, Kristen, I just read chapter 2. Guess what? Kristen, I just read chapter 3. And yeah, I've been really geeking out. I mean, I used to teach 8th grade earth science, and so many parallels. If I could go back, I would teach my 8th grade earth science class through a climate change lens, and it would be pretty easy. I mean, besides the really deep work we do in geology, but even that, they talk a lot. Hey! Even that, they talk a lot about Earth's history and how climate has changed over time. And they talk about Pangea, and they talk about the ocean currents and how things have changed over time. And so it fits perfectly into an earth science class, middle school or high school. I mean, this is, like it says, a teacher-friendly guide. You know, like you said, Sarah, it's written in a way that makes sense, that is easy to digest and understand, but covers everything.
I mean, I like the fact that it goes through ways to mitigate climate change, but also to adapt to climate change. How can we live with it, what we're doing, dealing with right now? I mean, because there's going to be so many changes, even if we find ways to, reduce our impact on the earth right now, it's still going to continue for a long while.
Right. I really liked in chapter 2 is called what should everyone understand about climate change and energy. And not only are there expert opinions, so everybody from Richard Alley to Don, to Kevin Trenberth, to Tamara and Josh Schneiderman. I mean, just the climate change scientists from around the country. It actually asks you as a teacher, what do you think everyone should know? And there's a couple of instances where it does that in the book of kind of sit here and think about this question. It's not just all digesting information. It asks you kind of some interesting questions, which I appreciated.
And that is so I like that approach, because I am noticing more and more, the more I'm coming across teachers, just because depending on what they're teaching, those connections are coming quicker to them. Earth science teachers are thinking right away in a systems perspective. So what is of priority to them is not the same as the life science teachers.
Sure.
So, and you have to make a curriculum such that it's flexible enough that it can address some things for this one and some things for that one.
Yeah, so I feel I'm very privileged that I teach both, so I can weave that into my life science curriculum as I learn more and more about the earth science and the climate change and finding ways, okay, now we're in ecology, how can I relate that back in recycling and, preserving our resources.
That's not only a privilege, that means you also are a resource for people like us. Like, okay, we should ask Sarah about what are the topics that have good overlap, because I am seeing more and more rural schools have only that one teacher that is going around and teaching multiple subjects. So if we want these discussions to happen in rural areas, then we have to think it from a perspective of, okay, what is this teacher teaching, and what is that one topic that would, speak to multiple content areas. So, yes.
Yeah, and I feel that this book really does that well. And there's great pictures, there's great examples, maps, graphs. I mean, the book is really done well.
As well as other resources and whatnot, books and online resources at the end of each chapter.
Yep.
Really nice.
Yeah, there was just a, nope, not there. Just a in that first chapter just goes over, it says the book addresses the science of climate change, how to teach it, and climate change's interdisciplinary nature. So even, obviously talking about multiple sciences, but the social aspects of climate change as well, aren't hit as hard, but definitely are talked about, which, we've been finding it easier and easier to get climate change into all disciplines of social studies. So that's a really neat piece of this too.
So, okay, but I need to share this with you because you kind of have been with me through this process. So the curriculum that we piloted in spring, our spring pilot is done. I have data, so I am looking at the data. Yes.
This is the part that Kristen loves.
I know. I love
data.
It post-facto. I don't love it when I'm in it. I feel like, why don't I work at a clothing store?
I think that a couple times a day too.
Be bored out of your mind.
It's so bad. And then when I go to a conference, I feel like, okay, this is good. I could do it. But anyway, one thing I'm noticing that in survey, the knowledge survey, the misconceptions that were reported in literature back in 2000, they are still persistent for our students still today, which greenhouse effect. So incoming radiation, outgoing radiation, some very, very basics. And it was just like, okay, these things, weather, climate, still. I mean, I still have about 10 out of my 200 sample is 10 weather, climate, just plain weather, climate. So those misconceptions are still there. Okay, the temperature, where does data come from? So anomaly data, what is anomaly data? Parts per million, average temperature, absolute temperature, these they're still not clear. So what we are looking at, what is actually that unit, that's also a issue. So I don't know, measurement itself, like how are these measurements taken? What is this data? That is still a missing piece. And sometimes I feel that media has made more understanding than me building the understanding for myself. Like it's superimposed. Like I know it because I know it, but I don't know it. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
So that's the picture I'm getting from my students.
Now we have work to do.
I think we have the same amount of work we had before.
They keep making people.
This interview quote, yesterday, and I still have to go back and read it. The student said that temperature increases not because there is a correlation between temperature and carbon dioxide, but because there is a higher density of carbon dioxide. So just because there are higher molecules, so we have like a stressful atmosphere.
I wonder how they came to that.
I don't know. It was that's what it is. I will go back. I have the ID. This is breaking the protocol, but I have to talk to you. I will figure it out.
Being recorded. Don't talk about breaking protocol.
IRB says not to identify the student. So this is big time, me breaking the protocol. But my mind is twisted and turned as to what do they mean. And 5 minutes is not going to hurt anyone. So I'll figure it out. But
that's good. Looking at, what the knowledge that they come in with, where are the misconceptions? Where did they get their information? And how can we filter that down then through education to make sure that they're getting the most correct information?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I like that. I think one of the chapters here is about temperature, CO2, and they do start, I think I saw pictures of graphs or something, but I think they describe a little bit about where the data was collected. It's somewhat there, or what the data is. These measurements are collected, something like that. But
We talk about a bunch in our curriculum for teaching teachers, because we take it from a very scientific approach, and we want the teachers to understand that if they don't, they're certainly going to have a harder time imparting that knowledge to their students.
I feel that they go really in depth in this book, talking about, you know, what ppm means, how do they measure stuff, you know, comparing the amount, you know, how much CO2 would be in a sugar cube, you know, in the similar density of the atmosphere.
Is that in chapter 3?
Yeah.
That you're looking in? Yeah.
Yep. And so, and besides that, you know, just great, like I said, pictures and so much more information than I really thought would be in here. I mean, it is incredibly comprehensive. I would love to see this turned into, or have student, you know, like a student curriculum. You know, like, how do you turn this into a year of teaching, or to a class, or, you know, I mean, you can use the information to find
it dips into my physical geology class almost when you get into what is climate. And there were times, you know, teaching physical geology and the geologic time scale, I'm like, climate, we're gonna talk about climate today and climate change.
I mean, chapter 4, climate change through Earth's history.
Exactly.
I was just, I didn't think that they would go through, you know, Earth's history and describe how things have changed. I mean, they go through each era, talk about what was happening and how it shaped where we're at today, which
my guess is that was deliberate in terms of the misinformation campaign that they're trying to fight.
Definitely.
The stories they felt they needed to tell.
Yeah.
And it's happened before.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yep. Yeah, they stress, you know, definitely the rate of change. But I know that this, you know, came out of the need for real information after the Heartland released their campaign. And, you know, their goal at Paleontological Research Institute is to get this into the hands of high school teachers, so they have an actual resource with real scientific data in it. So, yeah, we
all my teachers have that Heartland, like they got it in their school, mailed to them. Not, and they were laughing. It's like, our things that we ordered never come to us. They get lost and stuff. But this sure made through.
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, every event we have with teachers, we get 10 to 20% at least have gotten it.
Yes.
Which,
like what? Were they hand delivering it? Because they sure missed it.
Yeah, it's, I wonder, and I know that it, you know, kind of went out in batches. One batch went out last, like, April, May.
STEM Center got a big batch of it in Minnesota. My
oh, really?
my old yes, because my old advisor, she called. Well, I don't have anyone on climate literacy. You want these? Keep them.
I might have gotten it, but I don't remember getting it, and I probably threw it away.
Just looking at some of my questions that I was going to ask. So obviously this is a resource for teachers, but just thinking about the vast amount of information in here, how would teachers, you or teachers, use this? How would you incorporate it into a classroom or into, not a science classroom, using it interdisciplinary?
I feel this historical information is a little bit missing. So if it would if there was like a narrative or just a geography lesson or a history lesson. I don't know where it would fit, but this piece that you were talking about, it would definitely benefit students thinking in a longer time scale. Currently, they're not thinking in terms of millions of years. They're just thinking that it's man-made, because they don't think that, they're not comprehending it.
So adding that idea of geologic time kind of helps them put in perspective what is actually happening.
Yes. So in our geoscience classrooms, they do proxy data, they do ice cores. So they go like this: carbon cycle, then direct and indirect observations, then carbon dioxide and temperature, so something about the correlation causation, then carbon in oceans. So that's how the progression goes. But I think they could spend at the front end, if they spend more time in these historical, then they would have some solid background by the time the causation correlation discussion happens.
And I think that's kind of represented in the book, because chapter 4, which talks about Earth's history, is long. It's got a lot of detail. So maybe more symbolically that, it's a long chapter, and so maybe it's, symbolically representative of spend time on this, make sure that you and students, understand what has happened, so that you can understand what the severity of what's happening now. Yeah.
I have a lot of overlap next year with kids in my climate class and then in my physical geology class. So I can see myself using this history portion in that second semester class to talk about the geologic time scale.
Are the classes you teach, Sarah, are they all electives? Okay.
Yep.
How fun.
Yeah. I'm so excited I got to do that this year and loved the climate class. I still have kids raving about it and going, I wish I could take it again next year.
It's so great.
It's fun. It was good.
What's your kind of progression? You don't need to get too detailed, but kind of what's your progression?
So I used 3 of the climate generation guides. I did Minnesota's climate. We ended with, oh goodness, now I can't remember off the top of my head. We ended with citizen climate. Okay. There's one in between.
Next generation climate?
No, we didn't do that one.
Energy?
Another high school one.
No. Our changing climate.
Yes, our changing climate. So it was a really good progression, starting off with Minnesota and, making it, because we're in Minnesota, right? And then ending with that, citizen climate piece on it. And, I even had them write letters to legislators. And so that was fun. And we got some responses. So
great.
It was really neat that they were able to get some feedback. We're not just writing letters, you're actually getting something. So
what did they say? I'm just curious.
We got one from an individual in our district that was, thank you for your input. It was kind of just wishy-washy on, we're not talking about it right now, but when we do, I'll take your, notes into consideration, because they based a lot of their stuff, because we just got done talking about cap and trade and the carbon tax. So they based it on that. And so that was pretty neat. We had one student that got a letter back from the Obama administration. So that was pretty cool. But not a whole lot. I didn't read the letter. I just saw the big envelope and went, here you go. Let me know how it goes. But it was nice to be able to get those responses back.
Yeah. Citizen Climate is getting a complete overhaul this summer. So it will be updated. So it actually has more than just the Kyoto Protocol in it. It'll be a really fun progression, kind of keeping the same base in science in the beginning. And then I think we're doing more of an understanding of international negotiations.
So we did tune in to the COP 2030, right? viewings of our delegates that were over there, and we were able to do about half of each session and, you know, just be there and listening. And they thought that was so awesome to be a part of that, you know, and that they could ask questions, and we watched the rest of the recording the next day. So if they did address anything from us or said, hi, you know, from Minnesota, they were there to enjoy that. So.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. The
cool.
new curriculum will have more of that. We're going to, I think, inject World Climate Interactive into it so they can actually, you know, practice doing more of the negotiations similar to lesson 7. And then we'll kind of get into how are we going to meet those goals, kind of national, state, local goal, or work in order to meet the national goals. So yeah, we're super excited. And so hopefully that will be out by the start of the school year.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the book or how teachers could use it? No, not everybody read it, and I respect that. But I hope you're excited now to read it.
For sure. I am, and all your talk just makes me want to read it more.
See, that's what oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it'll definitely be a good resource for when I am doing our changing climate and Minnesota's climate, just to have more information and more data and, you know, just, I don't know, resources for the kids and just reiterating what they're already seeing in the the climate generation materials.
Chapter 6 was interesting. It was basically the national climate assessment in a chapter. So it's regional climate, U.S. regional climates and current and future. So it really goes through each section that the national climate section or national climate assessment is divided into, and talks about regionally what's happening or going to happen. So that was kind of neat to, you know, have it in a textbook form. But I love the national climate assessment. When somebody asks me for, like, you know, what do you use? What's going to help me to understand this? I usually go straight for that. So it's kind of fun. Before we go into just some questions that I have just about the network and kind of thoughts for next year, any other just general climate change education stuff you want to talk about? Questions?
What was in the geoengineering chapter? I know there's one, but what was in it?
Chapter 8.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I didn't read that one. I'm just looking at the like topics about counteracting climate change and examples of carbon dioxide removal, which I'm actually, now that I read that, going, oh, I need to, you know, really read this and take some notes on it, because my kids ask, well, what if we do this? What if we do that? You know, when we got into recycling, my life science kids really, you know, dove into all of these possibilities of why can't we do this with the trash? Why can't we do this with the carbon dioxide? And just like, okay, this is great. This is great. This is not where I wanted to go with today, but that's all right. But that'll be a really good resource for me as well. And then like the solar radiation, what is that? Management techniques. But pretty neat. My husband's an engineer, so I'm like, ooh, this might be a good topic.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the first time last week I saw a combined wind turbine with solar panels. Ooh. So they are in Chicago, all over, what they can alternate depending on where higher efficiency can, so they calculate and then they switch. So I thought that was out of the world smart. So
really cool.
And they're compact. The wind turbine doesn't go like this, it goes like this.
Oh, I like those.
Yeah. Hy-Vee has some of those now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have a Hy-Vee now in Rochester, over 4 or whatever, but yeah, they have the little cycling ones.
Yes.
And I think they're hooked up to, you can plug your car into them then.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I didn't know that. So see, we're making progress too.
Are they as efficient, or do they produce the same amount as a like 3-spoked turbine?
Well, I asked my husband that question because he gave me a big, very detailed lecture that I skipped. But he went into a lot of details with units and terms and powers and kilowatts. I think they're
Tell
more
me the answer.
That's what I said. Just tell me the answer. We have to go eat pizza. Is this good? So he said, I thought you'd be interested, but this is really good.
Nice.
So, but I hadn't seen them before, and it's more cloudy in Chicago City more times than it is like the direct sunlight. So the solar cells that they have used efficiently capture diffused sunlight and wind in the downtown area, which there is plenty of. So, but in more detail. Yes.
All right. I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay. I've just got a couple of slides that I will show just 'cause that's a little bit easier.
Are you still at work?
No. All right. Is that working?
Yep.
Nope. This is my house.
Oh, nice. Look at the sun.
Oh yeah, it's still up and it's so hot in here.
That's why I thought it looked like, you know, the climate generations building, because it was so sunny behind you.
Yeah, we moved into this house about 2 years ago, and it's like this beautiful vaulted ceiling. And the problem right now is there's about this much insulation in that roof. And so we had some leaking over the winter. It takes so much energy to cool this house. And so we're getting a new roof in the next month with like a whole bunch of insulation. I'm so excited. Energy efficiency. Okay, so the overview of the year, just wanted to kind of go over what we've done this year. Back in October, doing actual cli-fi, when they did Exodus, the water knife was cli-fi, same sun here, flight behavior, and then stuck in some nonfiction in there as well. The World We Made, Drawdown, Buried Sunlight, and then obviously the teacher-friendly guide. In the beginning, when we started planning for the network, we were going to do a book every other month. And there were just so many amazing books that we were like, you know what, we're going to really read one every month. Is it too much? Should we do the every other month situation? I mean, obviously we have a small group. I want to have more people to come. But just
would you do meetings every other month then?
We could do meetings every other month, or it could be more of kind of informal discussion. I've thought about posing a question specific question along with the book, or just having more specific topics. We've talked too about not with cli-fi, but if we're doing nonfiction, doing just a chapter, or specific parts of books. I want more people to join. It's a super informal thing. I know people are busy.
I know Exodus I got all the way through on my Kindle and loved it. I mean, I want to find a way to put that into my climate class next year. I just think the kids will love that book. Same Sun here I got through about halfway through. I put it on audio and just listened to it on my way to work and back home.
Nice.
And Flight Behavior was all audiobooks, so that was really easy just to get through. So with those resources, I was able to get through them fairly quickly. The other ones just maybe were a little bit longer, or maybe I just didn't have time to get through all this, the whole month. But this one, I had all the intentions with the teacher-friendly guide to get through it, and I was in St. Louis at the end of April going, yep, I'm going to sit down. I have all, this book, and then I was away from home and I just decided to relax instead. But
No,
just for sake of time, it's, you know, I really enjoy the books that we go through and having that be an end discussion at our meetings. So I don't think a book a month is too much of a stretch.
Sure. And even, you know, with Teacher Friendly Guide, with The World We Made, with Drawdown, it's not a book that you need to read all of it in order to get the, you know, the gist of the book and be able to join in on the conversation.
I mean, yeah, The World We Made, when I did the blog on that, I was making sure I just hit, you know, each of the different topics on it, and then anything else that seemed interesting. It was, you know, an easy read to flip back and forth between different topics. So
Sure.
I think the challenge of shortening it to every other month would be, my problem is there are nights I simply can't make. And then if it's every other month and you can't make one of those, then it's 2 more months. Exactly. Then it's even a longer break. And I am enjoying not only the group dynamic of you pointing out books and us being able to talk about them, but just the camaraderie of the other sharing that happens around the book discussion. And so if we go into every other month formally, I could see me only getting to 1 a year, and I wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
No, that's a valid point. Thank you.
No, I think you did a good job in putting one difficult book, one easy book, one bigger book. You put some thought into it, and I really appreciated it. But yes, once I got through, were because I was able to get hold of the audio. And so when I'm driving, it's listening. That's what's happening with kids and stuff. Listening is easier than reading.
Okay.
And others is then, if I'm reading them, it's like half an hour, honestly, twice every week. That's the pace. This is my own, I want to read this. Is half an hour twice a week.
Yeah.
And everything else is my job on the spot. I need to read this. So.
No, that's all super helpful. I think if I do, you know, I've always done a link to at least Amazon so you can see the book and, you know what it looks like and if you want to buy it, but maybe finding links.
And Amazon has an audio, like Audible portion. So I just downloaded the app and went, yep, go.
No, that's great. Maybe just stressing that too, like you don't have to read it, listen to it.
And I have Amazon Prime, so it gave me 2 like vouchers or, you know, 2 books. So I went, okay, good. This one and that one, and I'm good.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
My teachers have said that this time doesn't work for them, but because you record, so they have gone ahead and heard the discussions for Exodus and for Same Sun, and I think for one more, Drawdown.
Awesome.
Because a couple of them are in that challenge, the Drawdown.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yes. So the recording has helped. So.
Great. Well, yeah, we'll keep recording. I have thought about going through the recording or at least jotting down times so that if there's something specific that we start talking about, that I can direct people to that specific spot. Sometimes to sit down for, you know, an hour talk is tough. So if, you know, for this one, like the first half hour, you know, was Teacher Friendly Guide, you know, in the second half hour.
And then Devarty goes off on her students.
I am so sorry.
And then Sarah's son comes by and says hi.
Hey, that's a part of it.
It totally is.
Yep.
The dogs, the everything. That's who we are. So just that.
I try to stress the informal, fun nature. I guess I'm not doing a good job with that. To amp that up.
Yes. Oh, you know what? You shouldn't have to do that homework. When we are discussing, right then and there, you could point it out. Okay, so last 5 minutes.
Yep.
And we could note it down. You shouldn't have to go back
True.
and do that homework of re-watching or re-listening to it.
Yep. Yeah, I just need to key into that and jot some notes and stuff so then I can add some things to the site.
Yes.
looking at questions, you know, some of you have kind of touched on some of this, you know, the camaraderie and, you know, forcing, you know, to kind of read different books. Anything, you know, besides date, we were looking at doing different dates each month, not just Wednesdays, I think. Because that was a big piece. I sent out a survey months ago, and that was a big piece of why people couldn't come. Or favorite book. Pick your question.
Flight behavior.
That was
And
good.
same time. Yeah, flight behavior was good.
Flight behavior, though, I was like, am I reading the correct book right away?
That's
like, what is this? I really enjoyed Exodus, though. I mean, I want to get into the trilogy part of it and read more and see what happens.
Yay!
I don't feel like I can vote from the full list because I joined you late and missed some. But the one I read the entire book of was Drawdown, and I loved it. I recommended it to numerous other people.
Great.
I have a challenge about it now, so I think you read the in book.
They Drawdown is actually having a conference this October out in New York, and they are figuring out how to make it into curriculum. So it's just a bunch of educators and curriculum people to come together to figure out what to do with it.
Cool.
Wendy, are you gonna go because you read the book?
Probably not. The plate is full. But I mean, that's really exciting. You know, we need people carrying all that forward and making it real. It's not even good enough if it sits in their papers and different. It needs momentum and community.
Right. Yeah, I mean, people reading it and starting to do things and talk about it is great, and that's the first step. But you know, it needs to be in the hands of young people. You know, they need to figure out, they need to hear about all these awesome things, and then start doing the awesome things.
Yep,
it would be really awesome. All right, what else I got here? Usually we're deep into the books. You know, we kind of tangent here and there. But, you know, this is also an opportunity for teachers to come to talk about their successes and their struggles and their questions around climate change education. So I guess, you know, feel free to answer any of the questions, successes, struggles, you know, what will you be able to do next year? I know, Sarah, you've talked a lot about that today. Or, you know, kind of in a planning mode, how do we make this shine through more? You know, how do we convince people to come and share and, you know, use each other as resources?
Sarah, you're the teacher. Biggest success.
Goodness. I mean, just implementing my high school climate class this year was awesome. I mean, just enlightening for myself, and I believe the kids got so much out of it, and, you know, maybe knew a little bit of, you know, about the climate change, but being able to have the data and then go home and, you know, oh, my mom said this, or my dad said that, and being able to, you know, justify their reasoning behind it. Well, this is what we learned, and, you know, this, I know what you're thinking, but, you know, this is what the data is showing. It was awesome to hear those stories from these kids just coming back, you know. And then my mom watched The Inconvenient Truth, and, you know, we watched the Inconvenient sequel, so I had her watch that, and she's really excited. And yeah, it was a wonderful year for my first go around for a new class. So I think it was an awesome success on my part, and, you know, gaining more from this network that I can implement next year into that curriculum is, I'm excited to start planning.
That is super exciting. 2 questions for you, Sarah.
Yep.
One, whose idea was the class?
Mine.
Just were like, I'm going to do this.
Yep. So I graduated with a life science major and a middle school endorsement. And I started my education in South Dakota, and part of the teaching requirements did not include, you know, really anything earth science. When I transferred to Winona State, there were 2, you know, we have Earth's history through travel or whatever. It's something about geologic time scale, and then another geology course. And I went, wow, I think earth science, holy moly, like, why didn't I know about any of this? And I could remember it from 8th grade, but just, this is amazing. And I grew up in the Black Hills, and now I go back and go, look at all of these rocks and these minerals, and holy moly, I was surrounded by all this greatness, and gosh, I want to know more about the geology. So since then, I've been working on, once I get my 3 years of science teaching, I can take my earth science test for high school. And that, I did that my 4th year. And then last year was my 5th one. So I wrote up a course proposal over winter break, sent that in. And, I had all the, standards alignment from climate generation. I mean, climate generation was my biggest push, that helped me get this class. Just all of your resources and, saying, this is how it meets the standards, not only the science standards, but all these literacy standards and even other cross-curriculum standards. This is what I want to do with it. This is, the curriculum guides I want to use. And our principal is very appreciative of that and supportive. And he went, let's do it. So wow, it cool. Was, all me, just because I've had the Minnesota, climate generation tool for Minnesota for, before I even graduated, from going to MEA workshops and whatnot, and always wished hoped I'd find a way to put it into my 8th grade class, but never really got a chance to implement it without implementing the whole curriculum, which I just didn't have time for before the MCAs come around. Sure. So this was my push to be able to do it. And like, okay, I know I want to start here, but where can I go from there? And so having these other curriculum guides from Climate Generation is just awesome. And so thankful for that.
Sarah, my heart is so happy. I'm so happy.
Yeah, and it was a good success. I went through the guides during the spring last year. I mean, I can remember being at state for track, writing notes about, okay, I could do this in a day, and this is one lesson, and this is day 2, just mapping it all out, with ideas on what the kids could be doing, and just felt very confident in the curriculum when I started the school year and where it would all go. So.
I love it.
I mean, so the guides were very simple to follow, and okay, this is how they want this part. They need these notes, and they can read this little snippet and make a poster and teach their classmates, and it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
I think what I'm also hearing is the cross connection and the interdisciplinary piece, because not only it helped you, but I think your principal and other teachers were able to see the, it gives you clarity of ideas that I know how this fits in, and I know I'm covering this breadth and this length. So then that gives you a lot of confidence. So, and I know, Kristen and Jenna, they have done a very good job in that from the point of view of a curriculum designer, that's like a very tough thing to do.
Yep. And then I don't know if it was just for me as a teacher or a word of mouth, but I'm going from 8 students this year to 17 next year.
Oh my gosh.
And electives at our school have made, if they get 4 or 5, they're doing good, right? And it's like, I will have 17.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that is good. That's very good. It is the word of mouth, and it is that class is interesting, and it is that we get something out of it. Oh, that we heard that, we learned that, and it's not just about a political statement. It's not. It's just more to it.
And I mean, my kids love the format of, I talk a little bit notes wise here and there, just on the introductory information, but then set them loose and, you have this reader and you have to share, your findings with your classmates or look at this data and whatnot. And they loved just the structure of the class. And then when I got to my physical geology class, I went, well, I have my college curriculum. It was kind of a formal classroom setting, doing notes and a few labs here and there, but I had a couple students that were in the climate class, and then in this one, they're like, we like the other one better. And I went, I do too. I really do, just how it was set up. So I want to find ways to change the format of my physical geology class as well. So it's more like my climate class and more of the students' responsibility to come back with the evidence and the information to share with their classmates.
Instant evaluation. We like the other one better.
That's valuable.
Yes.
Doesn't even need an exit survey.
Yeah.
My other question, super quick. Were there any deniers from, in the beginning of your class? And were there any at the end? Or, did you have, kids at the end that were just like, no? Or, did everybody kind of understand?
So I wish I would have surveyed the class at the beginning, which I want to do next year, just to see where they're starting at, what their perspective is on climate change and global warming and whatnot. But I did pose that question at the end, where did you stand at the beginning of the class? Did your views change? And I didn't get any that were like, didn't believe in this, sorry. And, it was, we knew about it. We understood a little bit about it because I had them as 8th graders. So I talk about climate then as well. And, the natural factors of climate change, but the other factors as well. And so I didn't have any deniers. And towards the end, I definitely didn't have anybody that was like, nope, still not believing it. Or anybody that changed their mind. They were all very accepting of the information that I presented to them. And they didn't feel like I was forcing them. Because I did ask this question, do you feel like I made you believe a certain way or anything? And they're like, no, we understood the data. And that really brought it to light for them, is just to see these recordings and, understand where the data came from and how we collected it. And it was enlightening for them that it wasn't just me teaching them. It was just giving them resources to look through.
Well, it sounds like you gave them really some freedom in, how they get to that point, like how they really learn.
Yep. It wasn't me just going, well, this is how it is, this is what you need to think. And so.
No, I think the young people are open to investigating and exploring.
And so a big piece of then the Minnesota's climate and whatnot was the journaling aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I followed that through both the other curriculum guides and had them, I made a whole, I should send this to you, Jenna. I made, a packet that was a binder for the kids that had areas for them to write in and to journal and to record notes. And, I did a, brief PowerPoint slide, and they just write down their own things and, draw diagrams. And I carried that reflection and journaling part through. Yeah, exactly. Right. And they loved it, to be able to express their own feelings. How did that make you feel with this new information, and then answer a few guiding questions along the way. But I think they really felt like they were taking ownership in what they were learning.
Yeah.
Sarah, we will be having a meeting in the next couple weeks, and I'm going to do a case study. You have done some kick-ass work and really honest. And I think that it would make a really sweet case study to say, like, hey, we've created this curriculum and we think it's great. Yes. But until it's implemented, until, they see a teacher using it, telling the story of how, they have implemented, our curriculum doesn't really mean much until they actually see it being used.
Yep. And it did. Those 3 curriculum guides plus the COP23 information. I did the inconvenient truth and inconvenient sequel in there. There was even a TED Talk with Al Gore, and just throwing in those little snippets of other resources for the kids was wonderful. It flowed very well.
So
this was a great discussion, and you could put that note in a success story.
No, I'm excited for next year.
So glad.
I'm excited.
Hey, it's Sarah's success story. It's SSS. This is
with your increase in students, that's the proof in the pudding right there.
Definitely.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, my hope is that we can start doing some stuff at our school, and grounds wise, and with the district, and getting the school board involved, and making a difference.
Your students will demand it.
Yeah.
And that is an excellent segue to my last couple of things before we go. Tools. I'm not going to share my screen again, but obviously we have our newsletter that goes out once a month. I think you all receive it. Those of you that are listening, if you don't receive it, go to our website. It's called Climate Lessons Update, the CLU, and it goes out once a month. Resources from us. So when we release our new citizen climate curriculum, We also have a documentary that we shot a couple months ago, and that's going to be coming out in the fall. A lot of fun stuff happening in the next 4 to 6 months. So make sure you're getting that. Our Summer Institute for Climate Change Education is our 13th annual conference. That'll be happening the end of June. We have a couple of scholarships left, I think, that covers lodging and registration. Otherwise, it's not too expensive. And that's 3 days of hands-on activities directly from our curriculum, speakers, a lot of outside time. It's going to be awesome. And that's
part of the reason why I wanted to implement the Minnesota's Changing Climate, because I'd gone to the Institute a few times before I went before I was even a teacher. I'm still in college, and I'm like, this is an awesome workshop, right? And to work through those lessons, I think that's the biggest kicker from the Institute, is being able to just do the lesson yourself as a teacher, be a student, and figure out what it feels like from the student's end, and what were your struggles, and so now you can empathize with what are my students going through when they go through this lesson is huge.
Good, we're doing something right. The last piece, last month we published Climate Commitments School Board Resolution Toolkit. So it's basically this toolkit that students can use to help raise resolutions with their school board to have their districts teach climate change. And so there's some examples of resolutions that other school boards have enacted. We've got a couple of groups that are working on it already. And obviously groups that have done this for months, years, but we just put something together so that basically it's related to the standards. We're really hoping to get climate change into our Minnesota science standards. And if we have all of these school districts that are saying, yes, this is important, hopefully that will help us to get climate change in these standards. So you guys are all awesome. This has been super fun. It's always like half of like, oh, I got to do something on Wednesday night. But then I get into it and I'm like, oh, this is the best. And I'm just so energized. It's been so much fun. I've read so much more this year. Work related, but it's been really great.
But in a way not, and it's nice. Which I have a hard time reading during the school year when it's for me, and this has been good. I like it.
I have enjoyed knowing you. I have enjoyed, being able to discuss things or hear perspectives, and informally when my children can walk and and I have enjoyed it. I've also fallen asleep and woken up at 8. It's like, oh, okay. Then
that only happened once.
Well, because I have reminder on my phone that starts buzzing at 5. So 5, 6.
Whatever you need.
Yes.
So what's the plan? You plan to kick it off again next fall?
Yep. So we'll kick off in September again. Kristen and I will kind of do some thoughts about what we're going to do, but I think I want to keep it once a month. We'll probably read a book once a month. One thing I am going to do is probably post questions each month. Just kind of have just another piece of the call to have some deeper discussion about a particular question, maybe related to what's happening in the world around climate change or education. And then,
maybe pose those questions in your, hey, don't forget we have this meeting coming up, and these are some questions to think about.
Yep. And there's one other piece of that.
And sometimes you were able to invite people who had something to do with the book or someone, so that was neat too. I mean, that is a good resource.
Definitely.
So
I can definitely work on that.
It happens, that's great. Yep.
Give us some notice for the first one so we have time to read it or listen.
Will do. Yeah, we'll try and get months in advance. I know for the first few months we didn't have much advance notice, but we'll set stuff up prior to getting started. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a lovely evening. And stay in touch over the summer. Got my email. Let me know how I can help or just to chat.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Sarah, send your data.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for joining us again, Wendy.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.